You've seen them at the boat ramp, shiny new outboards with unfamiliar logos sitting on transoms next to the usual suspects. And you probably wondered, what is that thing? Here's what nobody's saying out loud. Chinese outboard manufacturers just figured out how to build motors that actually work. And they're selling them for half what the major brands charge. Yamaha dealers are nervous, Mercury distributors are watching closely, and boat owners are asking one simple question. Why am I paying $10,000 when this costs $5,000? Today, we're breaking down exactly what's happening with budget Chinese outboards, whether they're actually any good, and what it means for everyone who owns a boat. Let's dive in. The marine industry has a dirty little secret. Premium outboards have been overpriced for years. Walk into any dealership and try to buy a 60 horsepower 4-stroke from a major manufacturer. You'll walk out lighter by $9,000 to $11,000 once they add rigging, controls, and installation. Now imagine someone builds a nearly identical engine for $5,000. Same horsepower, same fuel injection, same basic reliability. The market correction is happening in real time. The brand shaking things up is Parsun. Their EFI 4-strokes land in America priced at roughly half what Yamaha, Mercury, and Honda charge. Actually 50% cheaper. Dealers hate talking about this because the conversation gets uncomfortable fast. Why does a Yamaha 60 cost $10,000 when this Parsun 60 costs $5,000? The answers involve profit margins, brand positioning, and decades of pricing power that suddenly fails when real competition arrives. Chinese manufacturers spent the last decade quietly improving quality while keeping prices low. They studied what made Japanese and American outboards reliable, then built factories capable of producing similar engines at dramatically lower cost. The result is motors that start reliably, run smoothly, and perform like the established brands at half the expense. Let's talk specific numbers because this gets wild. A Mercury 60 horsepower 4-stroke sits around $9,500 before any extras. Add controls, rigging, and gauge packages and you're pushing $11,000 easily. The Yamaha F60 runs similar pricing, maybe $9,000 to $9,500 depending on the dealer's mood. Parsun EFI 60, $5,000 to $6,000 completely rigged. You can buy the engine, controls, rigging kit, and still have $4,000 left compared to buying a Mercury. Their 40 horsepower models run low 5,000s. The Honda BF40 costs $7,000 minimum. The $2,000 difference buys a lot of fishing gear, fuel, or boat payments. Even at smaller sizes, the gap stays massive. A Yamaha 25 horsepower runs around $5,000. Chinese equivalents sit at $2,500, literally half price for engines doing the same job. The math is simple. Lower manufacturing costs in China. Direct-to-consumer distribution eliminating middleman markups. Zero money spent on NASCAR sponsorships or glossy magazine advertising. The savings get passed directly to buyers, whether established brands like it or not. So what makes Parsun different from the garbage imports we remember? 10 years ago, Chinese outboards deserved their terrible reputation. They leaked oil, burned out stators, and had gear cases that grenaded after one season. Buying one meant accepting you'd spend more time fixing it than using it. The situation changed completely. Parsun's EFI lineup uses legitimate fuel injection systems, actual electronic fuel injection with proper sensors, injectors, and engine management. The castings are clean. Mechanics who crack them open report decent machining tolerances and assembly that looks professional. Internal components like bearings and gears use quality materials rather than the cheapest possible alternatives. The engines start in cold weather. They idle without shaking apart. They produce rated horsepower without lying about the numbers. These basic expectations sound ridiculous, yet they're exactly what older Chinese imports failed to deliver. Parts availability improved dramatically. A few years back, finding a replacement water pump for a Chinese outboard meant waiting months and praying the company still existed. Now, US distributors stock common parts and ship within days. You can order mystery components from overseas suppliers the same week you need them. Are they perfect? Absolutely no. Will they last 30 years like a legendary Yamaha 2-stroke? Probably no. They'll run reliably for the 5 to 10 years most recreational boaters actually keep an outboard, and good enough is exactly what the market needs. Here's what nobody wants to admit about the copying issue. Chinese manufacturers absolutely copied Japanese designs initially. Parsun's early engines were basically Yamaha clones with different paint. The block designs, gear case shapes, mounting patterns, all lifted directly from proven Japanese engineering. Here's the thing. Japan built their industry 60 years ago using identical methods. They copied American and European designs, improved them, then eventually surpassed the originals. China is following the same playbook. The newer Parsun EFI models evolve beyond straight copies. The fuel injection systems are different. The electronics use different architectures. The castings show distinct design choices. They started with Yamaha DNA, then evolved into their own thing. Established brands scream about intellectual property theft, which is fair. They also price their motors at levels that practically beg for competition. When your 60 horsepower outboard costs $10,000 and someone figures out how to build something comparable for $5,000, the market will correct itself whether you complain or not. Most boaters skip the philosophical debate. They care about value. If a $5,000 motor pushes their boat at 30 miles per hour, just like a $10,000 motor does, they'll choose the cheaper one every single time. Dealers are panicking for reasons beyond just price. Chinese competition threatens their entire business model. Traditional marine dealerships make money 3 ways: selling motors at markup, charging for installation and rigging, and profiting from ongoing service and parts. Chinese outboards attack all 3 revenue streams simultaneously. The motors cost less, cutting dealer margin immediately. The simpler designs make installation easier, reducing labor charges. The longer service intervals mean fewer trips back to the dealership. Parsun engines use synthetic oil rated for 200-hour changes instead of 100. Spark plugs last 600 hours instead of 300. Water pump impellers use better materials lasting twice as long. All of this means less service revenue for dealers who built their businesses around frequent maintenance visits. Online sales threaten the model further. While major brands force you through dealer networks, Chinese manufacturers happily sell direct. You can order a complete outboard online, have it shipped to your driveway, and pay a mobile mechanic $200 for installation. This completely bypasses traditional dealerships. The psychological shift matters too. 10 years ago, admitting you bought a Chinese outboard got you laughed at. Today, people ask genuine questions. How's it running? Any problems? Would you buy another? Once curiosity replaces mockery, markets shift fast. Dealers see the writing on the wall. When good enough costs half as much, premium branding only protects you for so long. Let's look at how these motors actually invaded the American market. This happened over years. Chinese outboard manufacturers spent years testing, improving, and building distribution networks before most Americans even noticed they existed. The breakthrough came from fleet adoption. Small fishing guides and pontoon rental operations started testing Chinese outboards around 5 years ago. They kept quiet about it. They just bolted them on boats and ran them hard to see what happened. When the motors survived full seasons of commercial use without exploding, word spread quietly through industry networks. If a rental fleet trusts them for hundreds of hours annually, maybe they're worth considering for weekend recreational use. Online sales platforms made buying them trivially easy. You skip the specialty dealer hunt or boat show travel. Just search, click, and a crated outboard shows up at your door. This eliminated the intimidation factor keeping people loyal to established brands. Price increases from major manufacturers helped enormously. When Yamaha and Mercury raised prices significantly in 2023 and 2024, Chinese alternatives suddenly looked more appealing. That $5,000 price gap that seemed tolerable at $8,000 versus $4,000 becomes impossible to ignore at $10,000 versus $5,000. The result is Chinese outboards transitioning from curiosity to legitimate market segment faster than anyone predicted. They're growing while established brands watch nervously. So should you actually buy one of these things? The honest answer depends entirely on your priorities and expectations. If you need maximum resale value, want every marina mechanic instantly familiar with your motor, and value brand reputation above everything else, stick with the major manufacturers. If you're practical, budget conscious, and willing to accept slightly less polish in exchange for massive savings, Chinese outboards make complete sense. You're buying transportation for your boat at half the usual cost. Set realistic expectations. These motors are newer to the market. They lack decades of proven reliability data. You're trading established track records for cutting-edge value and hoping the gamble pays off. Warranty coverage typically runs 5 years, which matches or beats what major brands offer. The difference is, getting warranty work done might mean dealing with a regional service center rather than your local Yamaha dealer. Less convenient, yet still manageable. Performance is legitimately comparable. Independent testing shows these motors produce advertised horsepower, meet fuel economy claims, and run reliably under normal conditions. They deliver what they promise. The calculation is simple. Save $5,000 on purchase price. Even if the motor only lasts 8 years instead of 15, you could replace it entirely and still break even compared to buying a major brand. If it lasts longer, you pocket the difference. Most recreational boaters replace outboards every 7 to 10 years anyway, either from upgrading boats or wanting newer technology. Chinese motors work perfectly fine for that time frame at literally half the cost. Here's what happens next in this market. Chinese manufacturers continue expanding beyond 60 horsepower 4 strokes. They're developing larger motors using identical strategies, proven technology, quality manufacturing, and aggressive pricing. Expect to see 100, 150, and eventually 200 horsepower models at comparable discounts. The major brands have 3 possible responses. Lower prices to compete directly, which seems unlikely given their established dealer networks and profit expectations. Add features and technology to justify premium pricing, which is already happening, or acquire successful Chinese manufacturers to eliminate competition while absorbing their cost advantages. Most likely, we'll see market segmentation. Major brands will own the premium segment with advanced features, legendary reliability, and comprehensive dealer support. Chinese brands will dominate the value segment with good enough performance at dramatically lower prices. Both can coexist profitably. The real winners are boat owners. More competition means better products, lower prices, and faster innovation across the entire industry. Whether you buy Chinese or stick with established brands, everyone benefits from legitimate market pressure. 10 years from now, buying a Chinese outboard will feel as normal as buying a Chinese television or smartphone. The stigma will disappear. The quality will continue improving. Prices will stay low enough to keep major manufacturers honest. So, what do you think? Would you risk a Chinese outboard to save $5,000? Or are you sticking with the brands you trust? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear real opinions from actual boaters. Thanks for watching.